which brings us to the point of the honesty of the Albanians, who are about the only honest broker in this whole game. They've never stopped flying the flag of Albania over their houses. When there's celebrations, when you see it, you might see the odd, newly designed Kosovo flag, but for all this time they've been flying on all their main buildings the flag of an independent neighboring country, even though they now claim to be their own. That's just one example there. This is the TMK, this is the current Kosovo military caserna. That's on the left is much smaller and less prominent is the new Kosovo flag. They still know where their loyalty lies and are not afraid to display it. And of course you've got a picture of Adam Yashari, who was a brigand and a thief who was killed by Serbian security forces before there was even a notion of an UCHK or KLA, but he seems to have become the father figure of this new country. Again, provocation for any non-Albanians inside Kosovo. You've got this Haradinaj, Ramush Haradinaj, showing clearly his wartime presence in his uniform, is linked now to his much kindler, gentler look as a politician now in Albanian circles. He's also was just released from The Hague. He was being held in The Hague for war crimes. Incredibly, all the witnesses that were going to testify to his crimes ended up dead. So of the lack of evidence, he's now been released back into Pristina, but the fact is nobody within the UN police forces or circles knows or doesn't think for a second that he's not guilty of those crimes and guilty of having killed off the witnesses that were aligned against him. And again, as General McKenzie pointed out, this is the leadership that they're going to build the country on. This picture I love to show only for the fact that it's Agim Čeku's house. General McKenzie mentioned him, the crimes that he perpetrated in a Croatian uniform. Members of our regiment were the ones who saw him in action. They wanted him indicted. He left his Croatian uniform behind, became the head of the KLA. We provided him with an air force. His people were behind the pogroms in 2004. The house that he lives in is the one in the back. He's just taken out 2 Serbian houses. He's in Kosovo, Poland now, living in a Serbian enclave and pushing out his Serbian neighbors. The houses that he's destroyed were destroyed first in the pogrom, and he's now taken control of them. But I just wanted to show that all these years of covering and opening up his past crimes and making sure that he gets an indictment in The Hague, I wasn't afraid to go to his house. He wasn't home, by the way. Adam Yashari, as I mentioned, I mean, he is redeemed and revered now. That's got to be an 80-foot poster. It's outside of the UN headquarters, which again, people inside the UN have proclaimed this to be certainly a provocation or intimidation for any non-Albanian inside Kosovo. There he is again. It's difficult to see the size of it, but that basically translates from Albanian to we will finish what he started, essentially. And those pictures and posters are everywhere. And what he started was basically, he was a thief and a smuggler, but he was gunned down, and apparently, according to the people that were there at the time, they found him in his dog kennel. He was hiding when they actually caught up with him and shot him. Bill Clinton, again, honest. These people know who to thank. This is Bill Clinton Boulevard, I think it says, yeah. And again, look at the size of those windows. That tells you how big that poster is. They're not afraid to show who their makers are. And again, things like this. This is Agim Čeku's hotel. Once the Americans pull out, it'll be a 75-foot statue of himself holding a Kalashnikov, I'm sure. Who's happy in all this? Well, for now, the Albanians are happy, but again, they're, for the most part, 50% unemployed. Americans, of course, are happy. This chap was looking forward to his next riot with the Serbs. This picture I love to show because we already touched upon the fact that drugs and prostitution constitute the majority of the economy illegitimately. Foreign aid is the bulk of the actual economy. And this, I was told, was a surprising statistic that junk metal from scrapyards, automobile scrapyards, is the major legitimate export from Kosovo. Now, how you're going to build a country on that, I don't know. But given the state of the roads, it's a growth increase, or growth independence. 17,000 NATO soldiers still patrol the streets, still there to provide security, and anytime you've got 17,000 foreign troops in something which is just a little bit larger than Prince Edward Island, you are not independent. And again, it's made clear, this is inside some of the Serbian enclaves, that NATO is watching and NATO is protecting them and watching their protests. The Serbian police were taken out of the enclaves, replaced with Albanian police, and now you have to have NATO soldiers to protect the Albanian police inside the enclaves. But somehow that's considered to be independence. I'm going to push through some of this stuff because I know we're running for time. This is in Gora. It's something which is just a little unique sort of side chapter on our last trip. We went down to Gora. The Goranis are actually Serbs converted to Islam. which throws in a big twist. They're still loyal to Serbia. They fought for the Serbs against the Albanians in the last war, and as such, of course, they're being persecuted by their Albanian neighbors. But again, whenever you've got this simplified down into black and white, it's Orthodox Serb versus Muslim Albanians. In this case, no, you've got Albanians still intolerant of these people who self-profess to be Serbs that happen to convert to Islam. Similar territory. That's actually the only single Gorani member of parliament. It's kind of like a Borat thing. This is his house, welcoming us to his house. But mountain people, hearts of gold, very poor, and of course they're being preyed upon now and forced to leave. There's only about 8,000 of them left out of the original 20,000. Story you don't really hear. That's rush hour in Dragaš. That's what Borat did. Simple people. That's the border between Kosovo and Albania. It's completely open. It's been completely open since '99. All the former checkpoints that were manned by the Serbian security forces have been abandoned. And that's something which a German soldier pointed out to me, that this was could easily be closed with one reconnaissance vehicle and a company of troops, but since 1999, powers that be have chosen to leave that open. And now what's happening is they're not just coming in and bringing in their drugs or their weapons or whatever trade that they're doing. They're actually coming in and completely harvesting the woods, the forests on the sides of the mountains inside Kosovo proper, which of course takes away the land that the Goranis use and that they live in, taking away their habitat, if you will. And again, indicative that the people, the Albanians in Kosovo, see no difference in protecting their resources from people in Albania. They see it as one and the same, and that this is in fact all just greater Albania. In Lipjan, after the pogrom in 2004, temporary headquarters were set up, donated by the Russians, and they're still living in them compared to the other aid that's being given to the Serbs. In other words, there's no initiative on the part of the international powers to make a life for the Serbs. They basically got nowhere to go. This particular guy had been fleshed out of the Krajina in Croatia, came to Kosovo to find a new life, and now lives in a container and has been since April 2004. Going through, okay, these are the, where we go. This is outside of Mitrovica. It's on the Albanian side. This was destroyed graveyards. They went in there. This happens all over Kosovo, wherever they can find. And not even in death will they let the Serbs rest in Kosovo. They've destroyed these graveyards, toppling the statues. And this one was a little boy, was 8 years old, and they smashed his headstone too, so just gives you an indication. This one was a newborn or a stillborn, and there was a little fountain that had been in there. They tore that out and ripped it up. They also used the graveyard as a garbage dump, as an insult to the Serbs. And just to give you an example of when you just cross a kilometer away from there's another graveyard inside the Serbian enclave of Mitrovica, and it's pristine, as you can imagine, just like that. People want to leave on a hopeful note. All I can say is that it's still evident that this is the religious heartland of Serbia. The buildings that remain, the people can't deny that this needs to be protected. These things don't just belong to the Serbs, they belong to everybody given their age. It's all part of all of our histories. This is the monastery in Gračanica. And of course there's Prince Lazar's tower on the battlefield that, as you know, started it all. It's still there. Serbian spirit inside Kosovo. I know this doesn't show very much, but it's still active. I mean, despite all the kicks they've taken, there's people living in the enclaves still go out and protest almost daily, still defiant, as is the flag that flies above Mitrovica. And of course it comes back down to the showdown, which is still expected. I mean, what happens in Mitrovica is going to determine what happens in the rest of Kosovo. If the other enclaves go one by one and Mitrovica stays, it's not going to change the situation. If they can manage to secure, as there is a plan afoot, which we learned of, to try to subdue and secure that from the Serbs, that will mean the end of Serbian presence in Kosovo.